In Taiwan's military, elite squadrons are constantly training in preparation for action. Each year, soldiers strive to join the ranks of these special forces for a chance at being the best of the best. To make the cut, they must push themselves to limits they never knew existed.
放开啊，双手双脚放开啊！赶快还差一步啊，快点还差一步！
如果他怕水，就等着被淘汰。
所有人相对动作做好，把水擦掉啊，头要流出来。
Now, Discovery Channel brings their experiences alive as Taiwan's ex-Special Forces member Liu Gonghong joins the recruits to share key moments on their journey to become warriors.
人生刘畊宏对面是下降，冲过准备好。
都非常哇，呼吸非常不正常。
In this episode, Taiwan's Underwater Operations Unit, the Navy's most technically advanced underwater divers. They carry out complex missions under extreme pressures. And these are the hopefuls that seek to join their ranks. On Taiwan's southern coast lies the city of Kaohsiung, one of Asia's largest and most active harbors. Its deep waters are the training grounds for Taiwan's most elite naval diving unit, Underwater Special Operations. Each year, only a handful of recruits makes it through the 12 excruciating weeks of training necessary to join this elite unit. These men become more than just expert swimmers. They become masters of their domain, learning how to live and breathe underwater.
那事实上有很多学员在进来的时候，游泳技能不是很好，我们都必须在这4周的训练当中，将它提升到一个程度，使他在结训之后能够为舰队服务。
Members of the Underwater Special Operations Unit are strategically dropped into dangerous time-sensitive situations. They are experts in underwater recovery and repair, as well as deep-sea salvage and demolitions. For decades, these men have acted as Taiwan's key first response team. They not only aid the military, they help rescue and evacuate civilians amidst the fiercest forces Mother Nature has to offer. As an ex-Special Forces frogman, Liu Gonghong has been in tough spots before, but to take on full-blown underwater ops training may test even his limits.
今天我来到这里呢，是海军水下作业大队，国军最专业的潜水训练单位。不管是卸弹处理，或者是急难救助，都是由这个单位来出任务。今天我要来接受他们的特训。
游泳池位置都踩不好，都定不好的话，那你更别说到外海去了。
看你好像快不行了啊！不要踢那么快嘛，慢慢踢就好了。
It's day one of the 12-week-long grueling training session, and the instructors have put together a wet welcome for the recruits to see just what they have to work with. Many of the 35 men are already hurting.
一开始跳下去的时候很挣扎，然后肌肉很硬，然后吃了很多水。刚刚吸不到空气，然后又抓不到东西，就觉得处在一个很恐惧的状态下，就觉得快死掉一样。
Navy divers must operate underwater for hours at a time, supporting themselves and their gear by treading water. This motion must become second nature if they hope to last through the first 2 weeks of training.
在水里，脚已经酸到不行了，所有的乳酸堆积全部都在我的脚上，因为这需要不断的打水，不断的踩水，尤其是双手如果要举起来的时候，你的身体会。 平衡点更是要推揉脚，所以非常艰难的一个训练。
After several hours of drills in the pool, the recruits are physically shattered, a clear sign that they need more conditioning to build muscle and increase stamina before they're ready for a second try at water drills.
带水，让它接了。用往前啊，右脚要超过手掌，手往后拐。
我们在水下的这个装备非常的重， 那所以说，当然要有比这个陆上或者是其他单位、海军单位更强韧的体力来担负这样的任务。
Navy conditioning is pain like nothing these men have ever felt before. Dynamic drills exercise multiple muscle groups, stimulate their nervous system, and increase their power output.
这样感受，就是身体非常的酸。我发现他们的训练，每一个呢，都要将你的身体的机能达到一个极限，因为他练到你的腹肌、前背，像刚刚这个动作，其实他需要训练许多腰部、腿部，他跟一般浮力女生不太一样。那当然这是跟他游泳、打水、潜水各方面的肌肉的力量都有关系，然后要让你耐力超过你自己所想的意志力。
不要敢打直啊！2下就下去了啊！
这样做不标准啊！我上去就不推啊！
当初是没想到这么操，进来的时候才知道这算是挖人类的，才知道进来就很痛苦。
Instructors give new meaning to the word pain, pushing recruits relentlessly. They are all too clear of the physical stress that awaits these men. Underwater, becoming fatigued means failing a mission or potentially losing their life. Daily drills last agonizing hours, from day well into night. Instructors use aerobic training to improve recruits' cardio. Long-distance runs strengthen slow-twitch muscle fibers for endurance. Back-to-back suicides and jump squats build fast-twitch fibers for strength. Their extended work underwater will put heavy demands on them physically and mentally. Physical strength and endurance are the crucial foundation these divers need before they are able to carry out advanced technical missions underwater. They must spend hundreds of hours getting used to living, breathing, and working in their gear. Their lifeline to the surface. Every action must be perfected, starting with basic water entry.
手抬啊，脚与肩同宽，大臂夹紧，我推就掉了。
刚才被教导的就是这个手臂一定要夹紧，以免在入水的时候被打开。那当然，这个手的动作呢，有点扒的一个就是扣紧你的鼻子、下巴，大拇指扣到你的下巴，这防止你的面罩呢不会被水的冲击给冲掉。
Hours of continuous practice each day forces recruits to perfect their technique. Pushing the limits of what they can do underwater, each drill is harder than the next. Platform jumps help them overcome fears and prepare for entering the water from boats and helicopters, as future missions will require. Next up is a 15-meter single-breath brick carry. It will refine their breath control, equalization, and balance underwater.
教官指导告诉我，要下去之前我的呼吸不能够呼饱，因为不然一下子下4米以下，你会沉不下去，你就硬要吐气，等于吐完气，你然后这块已经没气了，你要再游到定点就很困难。OK， 后来我就吸到大概7、8分，下去的时候慢慢的潜下去，气也慢慢的吐掉一些。刚学员跟我讲说，嘴巴自己还偷长一口气，当你鼻子吐掉气之后，嘴巴可以再吞一口气，可以帮助你氧气在身体里面更多。学到了，
你最喜欢的来啦！哦，小红快来啦！来下一个，听到哨音就换下一个。
Into week 2, the recruits are finally getting the hang of treading water, but the instructors are relentless, adding more weight every day.
像刚刚抬砖头的时候，那个时候真的我抬不起来，抬不起来的话我也没办法，因为助教说一定要盯到底，所以我就闭气的想办法，就一定要把它盯起来。
虽然在操课过程中很辛苦，我们很多次都很想要放弃。那像刚刚在拿砖头的时候，一个人拿3块，其实真的是非常吃力。那时候真的是很想放弃。
Diving conditioning is taking its toll on the recruits. Daily drills are still leaving them cramped and fatigued. Today, Liu Gonghong will give these 35 recruits several final words of encouragement before they begin tomorrow's first comprehensive individual test. Pass, and they'll move on. Fail, and they'll ship home. For the first 4 weeks, ex-Special Forces member Liu Gonghong has followed Taiwan's Underwater Operations Unit to make their journey come alive to TV. Now, as the young recruits face their very first major elimination to take them to the next stage, they'll have to go it alone. 1 in 3 will fail. The rest will continue with the remaining 8 weeks of training.
待会山上体能测验因为今天有下一点雨队员在跑步的时候注意一下地面，不要让自己摔跤了。
经过4周的训练，我们必须将我们潜水员的体能达到一定的标准。2分钟，开始。底下。2、5、拉伸，
最难的就是体力跟肌耐力上的负荷。
With the basic fitness tests completed, next up is the dreaded endurance test. It requires careful pacing. Reach exhaustion early on, and you'll quickly find yourself in deep water.
我本身自己就是那个手力比较不足，然后我就一直磨，所以就撑不住这样。
Celebration is short-lived. After finishing their indoor swim, recruits move outdoors for a final endurance qualifier that begins with a 2-kilometer ocean swim.
因为在路上你遇到的任何的这个训练困难，你都可以休息。那当你在水下的时候，可能遇到海象以及水流的影响，是没有任何人可以帮助你的。
我这个前方第1颗浮球为起点，最后1颗在军舰的旁边。军舰旁边。
8 hours into the test, physical exhaustion is at an all-time high. Recruits must manage their remaining energy reserves down to the very last drop. This test is their first glimpse of the stamina they'll need for their missions. If they burn out too early, they'll be dropped from the unit. If they're exhausted on a mission in the future, they'll be swallowed by the ocean's waters.
9趟，最后1趟了啦，要超过1个小时的冲刺了啦。
最痛苦的就是我们在游的时候，那个上面的助教会一直逼我们催速度，所以说就是你在游的时候其实是需要全力冲刺，然后非常有压力的。
科目，抓好你，走。
Winded from the ocean distance swim, recruits will need to slow their labored breathing and dive 10 meters down to the floor of the harbor to begin their initiation into Stage 2 of underwater operations training.
那个感觉是你看不到底，你不知道什么时候会到底，你做不到那个感觉，那个心里的恐惧。
你们在吐那什么东西呀？3、5，重做一次。
刚抓完海泥，可能2个伙伴，一个先抓到，但另外一个可能就是要等待另外一个抓到这样子。
后面踩水的踩好，标旗对正。OK， 左脸。一次抓好不就好了吗？一定要抓2次、3次。2个 ，OK。上岸。
接下来就是一游完或上来还要就是来回跑这个还蛮长距离，大概快2公里的路程路跑，然后而且中间是没有休息的。然后路跑完之后又会有那个俯卧撑跟仰卧起坐的，也是没有休息的，直接这样做，所以就是对心脏跟肺的那个负荷其实非常的大。
20下次，洗完边。
开始。
我觉得大家中间都很想放弃，可是就是都一起在互相勉励，然后提醒大家不要放弃，然后希望可以一起结束。
当导演响起的时候，奋力的往前奔跑，好标准，10点。
It's now up to their instructors to evaluate the recruits' performance and see which of them has what it takes to continue training.
如果说不适合留下来，还是一样，那就让他退训。好，请对，宣布这个退训的名单：2000公尺游泳未达标准的李金华。
要。就努力很久，就真的能力没办法达到标准，就只好被退训，只好离开这里。
你不是坚持要结训吗？你有没有做过努力？
有。
结果呢？
还是没办法达到要求。
丹江，你在哭什么？
那如果有接受第2个训练，我想收获应该会比这第1个月还要来的更多。
你有没有曾经想要离开？
有。
那你现在有什么好哭的嘞？把你在这边训练的所获得的记在心里。
After the Week 3 endurance test, 1/3 of this year's class has been cut. They won't be moving on into Stage 2 of dive training.
加油啊！不要哭啊！我想各位看到这些同学离开了，心里一定很难过。当场少了12位，各位在这1个月对于潜水员的这个训练适应能力还不错，并不代表你接下来训练一定会通过。也希望在第2阶段结束的时候，还能看到这么多人。有没有问题？没有。
These 20 recruits have proven their resolve and will advance into technical dive training. But from here on out, their journey will push their bodies further than they've ever gone before. Taiwan's Underwater Operations Unit has just finished their first endurance test. 1/3 of this year's hopeful recruits have been cut from the unit. Their arduous experience has tested their will.
你有没有曾经想要离开？有。加油啊！
Archiving key moments in this journey is ex-Special Forces member Liu Gonghong.
首先，先恭喜各位，进入到第2阶段蛙鞋面镜阶段。现在，请各员跪下去，将你的面镜装满水。装好水之后就站起来。跪下去啊，怎么装的啊？
这样的一个训练是让你要习惯于在水里作业，让你不要用鼻子呼吸，用嘴巴呼吸。所以刚开始会第一个非常不适应，其实会吸到一点水，但是呢，慢慢会习惯眼睛张开来面对你的工作，让你能够在路上就已经能够适应，他才能带你下水去做更深的一个训练。
Operating underwater means recruits have to train to breathe only through their mouths, as they'll be doing on their regulators in just 2 weeks' time. This particular drill was especially designed to acclimate the recruits to the extreme discomfort that comes with their job.
冲水，脸去冲水，其实脸是一个很敏感的部位，尤其是脸筋四周，如果被外来异物冲到的话，你第一时间或是之前没有训练的话，你会很紧张。
Mask training is endless discomfort as water fills their eyes, nose, and mouth, making a simple breath a complicated task.
当面镜装水的时候，其实你的视野看起来是极差的。有人在你前面，你就会模糊，就会想这样向近一看，但是你就抓不到那距离感。然后再看远的，你又不清楚到底有多远。 哦，所以尤其是在水里，你只要面镜一掉，哦，那个水的状况就是要让你去适应。
比较难的部分还是在于面镜，因为它是会把鼻子的部分也会罩住，嘴巴吸气的时候，鼻子其实也跟着会吸一小口，然后就整个还是要忍住那种直接水灌进去的那种感觉，这是最难的部分。
Once able to troubleshoot mask problems on dry land, recruits are taken subsurface for more drills. They'll need hundreds of hours of training in the pool to gain confidence in themselves and their gear.
还有一个就是面镜进水的时候，面镜进水的时候也可以把水排掉。做的时候，仰角45度，2只手抓住你面镜，上面压住，打开下眼，让水可以排出去。
刚开始呢，要下去的时候，会有一点这个混乱，因为你要从眼睛张开，戴上面罩，里面都是水，然后呢，你的呼吸必须要一下子用鼻子吐气，然后把这个排出来。所以刚开始第一次的时候，其实吐完之后已经感觉有点紧张，所以上来的时候赶快把面罩拿掉。其实当时你要用嘴巴呼吸就可以了，可是你会一下子水会有点混乱。
像这两个面比较大，所以我们在踢蛙鞋前进速度是靠这两个面。只要正常用大腿去带动小腿，但是膝盖一定要柔软去带动，膝盖不要硬邦邦。你完全靠小腿踢，一定很容易抽筋。刚好膝盖再柔软一点，刚好膝盖太硬了。
好，柔软。一个蛙鞋在水底下游其实不太容易，但是要习惯。那从刚开始排到现在，感觉有比较适应一点，但是这个身体的平衡还是要再继续练习。
After a week of integrated training, recruits are looking strong. Using fins to exert minimal energy with maximum power, they can now swim 50-meter laps on the pool floor in a single breath. They can move from shallow to deep water, equalizing seamlessly. Only after achieving this level of proficiency will they move on to advanced scuba training.
就觉得已经要死掉，然后水还一直不断的从鼻腔流到嘴巴，那酸味是没有办法忍受的。我觉得比较难的部分还是在于面镜，因为如果说一旦进水，里面的水流变化就会让整个视线就是一个成那种很抽象的画面，所以就整个平衡感会没有，就看大家踩水的时候会一直往左边往右边撞来撞去。
For some of the divers, pool training is proving too much. Disoriented and exhausted, water has gotten into this recruit's lungs, causing him to choke. He'll continue to be monitored until his regular breathing returns to normal. 2 weeks into mask and fin training, most divers have made remarkable progress, swimming the length of an entire football field in one breath, all while keeping inches away from the bottom of the pool.
希望我可以坚持到下个阶段，然后让这部分不会成为我的一个遗憾，这样子。
Next instructors will see how they fare with heavier, more complicated equipment and specially designed simulations to prepare them for all sorts of curveballs that might be thrown their way. On Taiwan's southern coast, 20 divers have made it through the first 6 weeks of naval underwater operations training. Today, they'll begin intense scuba drills to prepare them for their missions on the ocean floor. Bringing their training into sharper focus is ex-Special Forces member Liu Gonghong. Recruits have graduated to full gear drills, meaning they'll have an extra 20 kilos of dead weight to carry with them.
背双管踩水其实脚的负荷量会很大，四肢都会非常的酸，双管它还是一直往下拉，一直往下拉。
有没有解头？
困难点在于说气瓶，你几乎是要让它整个露出水面的话，就是你要整个承受它的重量，没有少了水的浮力去帮忙支撑。
Scuba gear is proving formidable. It makes the drills these recruits did carrying weighted bricks seem like child's play. To many of them, it feels like they've moved back to square one.
对啊，都到这个阶段，还是希望自己能够继续撑下去。
Recruits are finally comfortable enough with their equipment to begin drills that will enable them to carry out complex missions in the ocean's deep waters.
水下作业大队的训练呢，都是在水底作业，要让一体作业可以作业，而不是潜在水底。
故障排除最主要用意是要让潜水在水底下有比较好的稳定性，而且对装备的熟悉度。更重要是能够照应伙伴的一些状况。
Divers are often called into disaster zones to help with repairs and evacuations. So instructors work to simulate violent waves and currents early in their training.
当面罩被扯下之后，你在深水区你看不清楚，你真的要抓着你的伙伴。当这个调节器被拔掉的时候，我要抓回这调节器，但是呢，因为我可能憋气的关系，我身体变得有点往上沉，所以我赶快抓住我的伙伴，然后告诉他我没办法呼吸啊，然后他就赶快把他的调节器来给我。
好，现在做开始做反手的动作。
其实那些都是模拟海流的状况，那海流是会怎样，我们没办法预先判定，所以我们心里面不能先预设说可能会被前滚翻或后滚翻。你是轻度的时候，你最重要就是要去掌握伙伴的状况，然后把口具交给他。
第二组确实照顾你的伙伴，掌握住你的伙伴。水下作业大队的精神就是两个伙伴要确实的在一起，一起下去工作，一起上来。如果你不理伙伴的一些安全上的问题，你不适合待个潜水。
Divers often operate on the ocean floor with zero visibility. So underwater ops trainers prepare two-man teams to complete missions totally blind.
好，潜水待会音响信号，听到2声音响信号，就开始执行水中搜索科目。
With only their partner to help, divers work in pairs to locate an object on the pool floor. By working a grid they keep track of in their head.
像我们在泳池训练，它能见度很好，但是以后我们水下作业的时候，大概能见度都大概在2-3尺左右。有的更差的时候，伸手都不见五指。我们会把面镜封起来，就是让它能见度变得很差，就是完全看不见的状况下去照顾伙伴，还有去执行作业。
不要哥哥去哪里啊？是伙伴呢。
Using a weight and a rope of a fixed distance, the divers work the grid searching for their target. Blind grid simulations help recruits practice working as a pair, relying on each other, and acclimating to zero visibility scenarios. After 8 weeks of training and hundreds of hours of diving drills, recruits will undergo a test to simulate an extended range dive. Using a specially designed hyperbaric chamber, the instructors gradually increase the pressure until recruits reach a simulated depth of 120 feet. For those that cannot take it, this will be their last stop. They will be immediately dropped from the course.
我们今天一起潜的深度是120尺，为10分钟。10分钟是无需减压的潜水。是你们下潜过程中如果有问题，一定要马上喊，不要硬撑，不要让自己受伤了。下潜过程中全程跟助教比 OK。
Donning their full dive suit, recruits climb into a chamber made of steel 6 inches thick.
左脚先下，左脚。
After descending into the water, the chamber is sealed, and compressed gas is used to raise the internal pressure. Today, divers will be simulating the pressure they'd experience at 120 feet underwater, nearly 5 times the normal atmospheric pressure. Failure here means automatic disqualification.
开始下潜，20尺，20尺，90尺，好，112尺到，平衡状况。右耳无法补气，王启宇右耳无法补气，2到2，平
去额度痛，不要止痛，不要止痛。
好，通知潜水员放弃此次潜水，准备上岸。30尺，30尺，25尺，25尺，25尺，潜水 OK， 0尺到达水面，潜水到达水面。低，好起来，脚放出去哦，下一阶。
Several members of the unit simply can't endure the physical pressure that deep sea diving puts on their body.
感觉这边是挤压鼻子这边，然后挤到这边，然后这边开始很痛，然后后来就觉得有水开始流出来，就嘴巴里面都是血，然后血都流出来。
很危险。所以你加压的时候这边会痛。对。现在呢？
还是
气压枪就是说，我们身体里面像中耳腔啊、肺啦、鼻窦啦，它是有气体腔室的。这些腔室的气体会随着压力增加而压缩，所以在下潜的时候气体是压缩的。如果像有一些感冒、本人管不好，它会有耳朵痛，甚至耳膜破裂，或是耳朵痛，甚至鼻窦出血的现象。
是对啊，不能下去就不要勉强了。
就是已经走到这个阶段了。如果医生判定说我可以再做一次测试的话，我也想要再试看看这样。
到第2阶段，这个必须离开跟大家相处2个月的有郭东升，有吴军鹏，有柯国成，有王奇宇。我用的词语是你不适合这个工作，你只是因为不适合这个工作。
5 divers failed the hyperbaric test, bringing the recruits' dwindling number to 15. These remaining few will now undertake the most challenging part of their training yet: complex repairs in the depths of the ocean's waters. Only 4 weeks of training remain for Taiwan's underwater operations divers. They must now integrate the skills they have mastered in over 2 months of drills to complete missions underwater. Working at the ocean's floor for hours, only one line connects them to the surface. This is their lifeline. To swim to these depths, they must have complete confidence in their gear, donning it over and over again. Ex-Special Forces member Liu Gonghong has kept up for the better part with these young recruits. The 17B is a dry helmet and allows oxygen supply and radio contact from the surface. Unfortunately, those conveniences carry a heavy price.
17B 头盔还要背一大堆顺序，会害我搞不清楚。
不要紧，戴上17B 头盔，它是一个密闭式的头盔。入水之后，往往会让人产生一种不信任感，因为担心没有气眼。如果没有气眼，他就不知如何所措，所以会对他产生一种恐惧又害怕的感觉。回转左后握。
Dynamic movements underwater gradually build up divers' confidence in their gear.
问2号，问2号，你问他是不会回答哟啦。
2号潜水员不会回答吗
？17B 的打击是最大的，因为上来的时候真的非常的沮丧，我甚至一度觉得说我应该会被退训。
水面检查，
水面测试干嘛下去呀
？Descending into water in the 17B helmet is a disorienting experience. Every diver must face their own fear of drowning head on. Taking the plunge requires a leap of faith. Once underwater, they will have 30 minutes to complete their first mission, a subsurface pipe repair.
2号状况。2号潜水员状况正常。
在悬空接管的部分的话，最困难的地方是在于说，它必须背负着20公斤的重量，以踩水的模式将接管去做一个结合，并将螺丝去做一个固定。
It's mission accomplished for Liu Ganghong.
后来发现，还是路面上比较舒服。
It is the end of Liu Ganghong's journey to experience the intensity of the training of Taiwan's Underwater Operations Unit. In the last 12 weeks, this former Special Forces member has drilled with the recruits, learning how to live and breathe underwater. Now he bids his comrades in arms farewell as they move on to the final stages that will determine their fate. The next mission will be their hardest to date. It will require every skill they've learned over the last 3 months. Maintaining neutral buoyancy, treading water, operating in extremely low visibility, and something they'll be mastering next, an underwater arc weld.
电焊的部分在基本上一开始他们会产生为一种叫恐惧，电的恐惧，因为一般正常人对电的感觉是触到水是应该会被电击，但是现在他必须要去到水里去做这样电焊的工作，在他心理上会产生一种恐惧感。
During their first underwater arc weld, the divers must attach a work clamp to complete the electrical circuit, allowing electricity to flow from their torch through the wire to create an arc. Throughout the weld, divers will be in the zap zone, meaning their entire bodies feel the tingle of 400 amps of electricity as soon as they strike the arc. Death is hovering only inches away, as coming into contact with the arc itself would mean instantaneous electrocution.
水中电焊跟陆上电焊最大的不同点是因为陆上的电焊它可以看到铁水的跑法，你可以知道怎么样去走，怎么样去焊，但是在水中是没办法做到这样的，因为铁水只要一离开，焊道只要一离开，它就马上会被冷却掉了，所以你只能靠潜水的稳定性去完成它，并且达到水密的效果。
看一下你注它焊都是，它是在水中电焊的话，尽量就不要断焊。所谓断焊就是焊到一半停。可以的话，一支焊条就走到底，走到完为止。
After finishing the weld, the divers wipe off the slag and check their seal. This one looks good to go. Everything these divers learn must be practiced hundreds of times, because once they're through training, lives will depend on their work. Underwater operations divers have an unending supply of repairs due to the dozens of typhoons that hit Taiwan every year. These men work out at sea to repair ships and in reservoirs to fix floodgates and dams. When the island is struggling to keep its head above water, this is who they call. Only a 2-part test stands between these recruits and entry into the Underwater Operations Unit. Each diver will have 2 hours to complete 2 missions that integrate everything they've learned over the last 3 months of their intense training. First, they'll have to conduct a watertight arc weld 9 meters under the surface. Second, they must maintain neutral buoyancy while repairing a subsurface pipeline.
Yo, check. Oh, check. 潜水上头盔。潜水上头盔。
The first team of 2 enters the harbor for their simulated hull repair. Visibility is less than 2 meters, making it hard for them to gauge their own progress. They still manage to locate their mission and start to work. Both divers tread water to maintain neutral buoyancy, fixing the weld metal into place and setting their work clamp. Striking the arc and beginning the weld, they are making good time.
在海中的时候，
火光出来，瞬间就整个电流就扩充到整只手臂，感觉像一条蛇一直咬你那种感觉，很难受。
30 minutes into their test, the first dive team has completed their weld. One diver feels his oxygen running dangerously low. He signals to his partner. They have only seconds to fix the problem, but they'll have to return to the surface, forfeiting the test and months of hard work.
开启新感官之旅，你看见真色彩吗？你的冰箱是左开还是右开？你吃得健康吗？你洗衣时是否使用太多水？你知道室内空气有多脏吗？你知道可以随时美肤 SPA 吗？你了解鼻子塞住的困扰吗？我们的心有人回应吗？
欢迎回来。
Sharp 用心，科技变得更有心。你的全新感官体验，新感官新家电下的。
送你2000元悠游卡，延长到6月底哦。
三菱電機。Livelihoods rely on businesses. So in times of uncertainty, we help to keep trade flowing and keep industries running. Because of this, life can continue as usual. Standard Chartered, here for good.
Done everything I can do to get gold out of this ground.
Now is the time we separate the boys from the men.
Tucker, you're right.
We're gonna light this whole valley up?
You must be joking.
It's gonna be the fires from hell.
这一季，大家距离主矿脉只有1步之遥。
Holy crap.
This is the stuff that dreams are made of.
This is it. End of the game. Now we're going to tally the score.
阿拉斯加金矿的赌注，6月19日起就在 Discovery 频道。麦克和艾德回来了，全新一季翻新中古车即将登场。这次麦克走遍全球寻找绝佳好车。
I don't speak the language round here.
Somebody said. Collezione mia. Alfa Romeo, Lancia, Fiat, Citroën, Cadillac.
艾德负责妙手赋予车子新生。
Do you have any idea what that's going to do to my sanity? I knew you'd love it.
翻新中古车，今天晚上10点就在 Discovery 频道。
问2号，前面这次再往下去呀！
After 12 weeks of training, only 2 tests stand between these recruits and entrance into one of Taiwan's most elite military units, naval underwater operations. Just after finishing their first test, an underwater arc weld, one dive team is experiencing problems with oxygen supply. Luck is on their side, as several helmet adjustments and repositioning oxygen lines allow them to continue. With anxious hands and just under an hour left on their test clock, they move towards their next mission, a subsurface pipe repair.
1号潜水员到达海底。1号潜水员到达海底。2号潜水员到达海底。2号潜水员到达海底。
The divers have kicked up sand and debris on the ocean floor, causing visibility to drop even further. They can barely make out their own hands just 2 feet away.
1号潜水员已发现目标物。1号潜水员已发现目标物。潜水员开始固定悬空接管。潜水员开始固定悬空接管。请求安全开启侧身管。侧身管已开启。
This test requires a delicate balance where divers, the broken pipe, and the patch pipe lowered from the surface must all maintain neutral buoyancy. First, the divers inflate their flotation bag so that it floats in front of them. Divers communicate with the surface, and the patch pipe is lowered into place.
潜水员工作进度。潜水员工作进度20%。
With nothing to stabilize them, currents constantly shift the positions of the divers in the 2 sections of the pipe, making work slow going.
潜水员状况。潜水员状况。1号潜水员状况良好。1号潜水员状况良好。2号潜水员状况良好。2号潜水员状况良好。1号潜水员工作完成。1号潜水员工作完成。
潜水员准备上升。
潜水员准备上升。潜水员准备上升。
After nearly 2 hours of non-stop work underwater, the first dive team has completed both missions, followed soon after by the rest of them. Only now can these 15 men stake their claim, joining the ranks of one of Taiwan's most elite military units, Naval Underwater Operations.
水下作业大队水蟹专长班89期结训典礼。
这里训练的不只是你一些坚强的意志而已，他这边教你的许多人生观念，是你出去之后终身受用。一生中很少像这样，在那么密集的3个月里面这么充实，就是这么经历那么多事情。
留下来的人真的是代表说你的身体或是你的心智都很健康，因为我们在火花游这边，其实在磨练意志力上，其实寿命比体能还高。
看到助教他们对我们肯定，就是他愿意把这金龙徽打在你胸膛的时候，就觉得，哇，就代表他有一定程度上的认同你，就觉得自己比较骄傲，终于结束这一段。
不要，我要这一段。